Hello, everyone, and welcome to this audio podcast. This audio podcast is part of a Proxyl interlude or intermission. This audio podcast is part of a Cataclysm Chiasma, and this audio podcast as part of a Storm Robotics production. In this sort of interlude in this audio podcast, a sort of interlude as part of this audio podcast series, as part of the audio podcast series in around the pH 4 report. Um, this audio podcast interlude will sort of have a sort of there'll be there's an overview in regard to central mechanisms, looking at interactions between the brain and the immune system, and thus and looking at sort of the psychoneuroimmunology or concept, or the PNI concept. So investigators have delved into looking at looking at a sort of sort of factors in around well-being, such as feeling, familiarity, character, and coping styles, and how sort of factors can change in around the progression of illness. And there's research or works going back to sort of the mid around the mid 60s around the mid 60s in around the mid 60s and 70s, all the way up to sort of the new the in around up to just after the new millennium. So the neuroendocrine root is amongst seemingly is amongst seemingly arbitrating the stress of emotive progression on on immune cells. Specific endocrine system constituents, so for example, catecholamines and corticosteroids, could get produced can get produced or could get produced in amongst in amongst physiology, part of physiology, owing to sort of stress, or in reaction to coping strategy. The basis of coping influence coping influence in around the interactions between the brain and the immune system is probable to be to be sort of minute following a preliminary challenge or challenges, intermediary in a second in amongst the second challenge, and greater in a third in a third. Thus, how well individuals cope may be related or interrelated to endocrine in around it may be interrelated and amongst the endocrine system, and cell types in the blood. At the same time, the thought of the connections amongst the hypothalamic pituitary axis, or HPA, and provocative reactivity arbitrated by immune cells, has extended significantly, with much research highlighting the in around well-being strain, and how well-being sort of strain down modulate cell responses. Um, Crosstalk amongst the central nervous system, or CNS, and the immune system takes place through biochemical emissaries produced by nerve cells, and produced by nerve cells and as part of nerve cells and endocrine organs endocrine organs. So a well-being strain is known to disrupt the homeostasis and interfaces between feeling and immune cells may point out or identify how well an individual can cope in how well an individual can cope and in line linked to central mechanisms and central mechanisms as part of the interactions between the brain and the immune system. At the same time, there is now further there's now further sort of understanding between emotions, for example, and sort of disease in terms of in regard to homeostasis. The homeostasis consists of nerve signals and specific pathways very much related regarding to to strategies is both an excess or an inadequate stress hormone response to illness or illnesses, and surplus with vulnerability to contagion and insufficient hormone in long-standing ill health recipients. And so continual HPA access continual sort of HPA access and excess through stressful situations, and where there is a sort of a coping demand, or a sort of coping demand can potentially affect T cells through suppressive effects of the glucocorticoids. And one very important aspect in around research has been to sort of establish the associations between the effects of early sort of life stress early life stress, and or sort of coping or tendency to disease or diseases in in sort of in amongst those in who fall under the sort of challenged scenarios and situations. There is works in around looking at chemokine receptors, chemotaxis, and T cell migration, or looking at T cell sort of migration in context of how cell types affect responses, and certain cell types such as neutrophils, monocytes, and eosinophils. For example, amongst published works and literature. So listeners are welcome to sort of check out sort of literature in amongst evidence works by varying authors, by varying authors, and so that draws this audio podcast to a close. This audio podcast as part of a Proxyl interlude or intermission. This audio podcast as part of a Cataclysm Chiasma. This audio podcast as part of a Storm Robotics production, and this audio podcast as part of an interlude, as part of an interlude in this series of the pH4 report.